Yesterday is I don't know if you're familiar. I went to jail yesterday for preaching the gospel at Planned Parenthood in Orlando, Florida. Hopefully I'll see you in court. Panera Bread, PP, and that chiropractor who says he's a Christian popping backs next door. Let me be careful with my words, why they eliminate our unborn. So just a quick little story, man, because I went in there, when I went to that jailhouse, I went in there with the gospel on my mind, listening, soaking things up like a sponge. Now, in my past, I did 5 years, I did 3 years, and then I've done a bunch of county jail stints through my time as a drug dealer and then ultimately as a drug addict. So I'm familiar with that culture. I actually thrived in it. So, I'm coming in there, I'm like, man, this is ripe ground. Like Jesus said, the harvest is plenty, Jack. The workers are few. So I'm the only worker sitting amongst a fallen multitude. You got to be careful. I didn't want to come in there yelling this and that, thinking I'm a whack. So I just sat down there and I listened to conversations. So when you first come into the jailhouse, 33rd Street, Orlando, Florida, they book you or whatever, but they stay cuffed. Even though I was a misdemeanor, should have got like a ticket, they spent a whole day on me. Instead of that, I was cuffed behind the back for hours and put into a little small car, AC barely bumping, ridiculous. So anyway, back to the story at hand. We get booked and stuff. So as that goes on with you, you form a brotherhood with the other gentlemen that are around. You know what I mean? You form a brotherhood of like inmates, popo. So we end up getting out of there. Then we're processed out of our clothes into these blue jumpers. I don't miss that. And then we're ultimately sitting in front of, I want to say it was a sergeant's office. And they have to vet us, fingerprint us, and then we go over and we sit in the common area. You either get bonded out or you're going upstairs to the regular jail. So while we're sitting there, these guys are sitting out there and the sergeant's door is wide open. These guys are talking about, you know what I mean? Like the streets, running from the law, guns, different beef that must be happening in their area, whatever. So the cop never gets mad, not one time. So we start talking. And I started asking questions, and we start having a real deep conversation. And there's ladies right directly to my left sitting. So they're under the sound of my voice as well. So as I'm speaking to these people, they're sitting, and they're all black men. Couple white guys, but it look like they're detoxing off drugs. These are black men that they didn't look like they're drugged out or anything like that. It looks like guys that are just caught up in the system sitting there, my brothers. So I'm talking to them, and I start talking about Margaret Sanger, the Negro Project, the population of the black population in the 70s, the black population now, what Margaret Sanger quotes on black people and gypsies are like weeds, they have to be trimmed, the ultimate plan, the Margaret Sanger Award, Dr. Martin Luther King. I ended up having to whisper that stuff because as soon as I started talking about that and I started dropping bombs on abortion is murder, and it wasn't loud. I'm not talking like loud like I am there. I had a lower type voice. The girl could hear it. She's asking questions. The cop comes out, mad as all outdoors. And it goes back in. And then I start talking again, kind of try to stay a lower voice. He comes back out even more amped and starts saying he's going to lock somebody up. And, I'm like, hey, I'm in here. I know what the box is like. I mean, do we make a scene right now or I just shut my mouth? Because ultimately in the jailhouse, if you want it rough, they will give it to you rough. But I didn't think that was my best move. So I stayed quiet and, but I think that's a great example of what truth does, what Jesus does ultimately is when the unconverted, the ones God isn't calling, hear the word of God, truth about what abortion really is, it irritates demons and they come out. And it's an example of yesterday when I got locked up at Planned Parenthood. You know, that's a huge example right there, because I was preaching on the holiness of God when those men approached me and this, that happened. I didn't record any of that stuff. I only recorded when the cops came up. You know, I was just going to Planned Parenthood to preach the gospel for an hour and then get up out of there. And I was going to go to UCF. But I think that's ultimately what happens when you talk about the holiness of God. So be encouraged, Christian, if you're still on here listening to me, because the average person's out of here. They're not active. And I'm not saying you got to be active like I am or the people that I get down with, but I am saying the time is here and the time is now for you to step it up, man, and proclaim truth. And if you're gonna go out there into the lost multitudes, into the streets, be prepared for the pushback. And you know, even though it irritates me every time, I understand that this is exactly what the gospel is supposed to do. Grace and peace. Have a blessed day.